The layout of the wing room was simple, with a bed, a square table, and an old and yellowish cabinet. On the desk, there were all the necessary writing materials like paper, ink, brush, and inkstone. The window lattice faced the backyard directly. When the gentle breeze blew past, the branches of the slanting trees swayed with a rustling sound. There was no underfloor heating in the room, nor any warming stove. Since no one had lived in it for a long time, it felt gloomy and cold. Staying inside was no different from being outside. Wei Jing lifted the teacup and took a sip of the old tea. Out of a corner of his eye, he caught sight of her shivering calves and asked unhurriedly, "Are you very cold?" Sheng Jiaoyu was both cold and afraid. It wasn't that she was cowardly, but she was truly terrified of being alone with Wei Jing. He would humiliate her in countless ways, regardless of the occasion, and even dared to do those absurd and shameless things. The astringent aroma of the tea dragged her back to that scene. The knocked-over teacup spilled the warm tea in a swaying motion. Her back was pressed against the wet tabletop, and the tea soaked her thin clothes. She couldn't stop shaking all over. The man's nose bridge was pressed against her neck hollow. His breath was tantalizing. His thumb, with a thin callus, casually caressed her smooth and delicate face. Looking at her eyes forced to glisten with tears, he chuckled hoarsely. "Are you scared already? No one will know." He had always been using this way of humiliating her to get revenge on her. Her tightly clenched nails dug into his flesh. As her consciousness wavered, she moved her lips feebly and said, "I'm wrong. Just kill me." The man's grip was so strong that it seemed he wanted to break her waist. "I can't bear to hurt you." Sheng Jiaoyu hesitated for a moment. She didn't dare to lie to him, afraid of being seen through. She replied in a low voice, "Yes." Wei Jing suddenly felt irritated. Perhaps he was just too fed up with her sickly appearance, finding it an eyesore and superfluous. He coldly ordered Xing Kun to go to the carriage and get a cloak. Sheng Jiao didn't really want to wear his clothes. He was much taller and stronger than her. The black cloak draped over her was a size too big enough to wrap herself up like a blanket. She held the clothes carefully and placed them beside the bed. "Your Highness, your clothes are too precious. If I accidentally damage them, I can't afford to pay for them." The hanging window reflected the moon, and its bright and clear light shone on her side face. Her dark eyes with thick lashes, her delicate and fair skin, and the unusual light red on the tips of her ears were all due to the cold. He looked down and said this false statement, not being very skilled at lying. Wei Jing's eyes were cold and sharp. It wasn't that he couldn't see her embarrassment and panic. After hearing her full of flaws and perfunctory excuses, he sneered coldly, "Stop putting on an act.